Herr Präsident, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen,
Mr. President, dear colleagues, even the most successful military, the Iranian regime is not making a fuss about it, that it wants to erase the state of Israel from the map of the country. Iran, a country in the neighborhood of Israel, a military superpower in the Middle East, with a ballistic missile program that threatens us all the way to Europe. A regime without which there would be no Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis in this form. We have always made three things clear. First, Iran must never own nuclear weapons. And it must stop deliberately destabilizing the region through allies, not state actors. Second, it is the right of Israel to defend itself and its population. And let me be clear, if Israel and the USA succeeded in withdrawing the Iranian nuclear program, then it makes Israel and its neighborhood safer. Third, especially now that there has been a ceasefire since Tuesday, the return to diplomacy is our priority. Because the conflict with Iran must not put the entire region in a crisis. We must ensure in the long term that Iran does not continue its nuclear program. That's why I made it very clear to Tehran. Negotiate with the USA. Negotiate with us, the E3. Make credible offers now to get out of this dangerous situation. This is now the way out of the conflict. And I have strengthened the crisis diplomacy with our partners at the Gulf. These countries know how dangerous another escalation of the conflict would certainly be, especially Qatar, which reacted very strongly after the Iranian military strike, and which has our full solidarity. Many of these partners are worried that the influence of Iran on its proxies will not end for a long time and will cause further damage. That the region remains unstable up to an atomic weapon in the entire Middle East. What should we actually talk about today? And I was particularly struck by one thing. The complete inability of the federal government, and especially of the foreign minister, the German version of Sleepy Joe, Wadephul. Let's keep in mind, Israel launched a preventive strike against Iran on June 13 to switch off the Iranian nuclear program. The German foreign minister was, quote, surprised by it. At night, he even had to be woken up. And similarly, it already ran in Ukraine in 2022 during the invasion of Russia. The federal government was also completely perplexed. Even under the government of Merz, the third largest economy on this earth is blind and clueless with its secret services. With an aft, this would not have happened, dear friends. No wonder that no one on the international stage takes us seriously with this government, ladies and gentlemen. And after the precise interventions on Sunday, there was also a dispute in the federal government about this inability. Mr. Wadephul called the American strikes, quote, regrettable. Mr. Merz, on the other hand, distanced himself from his own foreign minister and explained that there was nothing to criticize about the USA and Israel. I would never have thought, but that I really have to take protection from Elena Baerbock. Such a dilettante picture in foreign policy has not even the bad ample government abandoned, dear friends. Also terms, Mr. Chancellor, also terms like dirty work are in this situation completely inappropriate and superfluous, especially if they are taken over by others. And that's why one thing is certain. Double morality does not bring anyone together, but builds up visible contradictions, divides and divides. In the individual case, as always, the history of the future is judged. In this respect, the so-called 12-day war could have contributed positively to a preliminary endpoint of a long conflict line. I follow the call of the Chancellor to all those involved to stick to it. Which contribution the United Nations, especially the Security Council, can make must also be discussed, which the Chancellor did not mention today. On this long path, it takes extensive discussions, multiple respect, and mutual recognition. Discussions about overthrow and regime change are completely out of place. Ladies and gentlemen, if the Iranian people vote for a change of government, it has to be done by its own strength. We are not in a position to decide about their future. We also have to ask ourselves how connectable and wanted by the population, for example, a crown prince is, who now almost seems to be standing in the streets to be allowed to stand at the top of this country for generations after his father. Do we have knowledge of this or much more reliable security? And appeal to our experience. Have we, as part of the world population, really made good experiences in the last decades to intervene strongly in a change of power from the outside? What were the consequences of this action? Think of Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, or Syria. Did we really make the region more peaceful and safer? Or did we create trust in us and our actions? And even with the 5% goal of NATO, you agree and want to fulfill it. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't agree with that. We would first have to know how the current investments are used and against whom. What do we arm ourselves? Where does NATO actually control overall? Mr. Pistorius is allowed to hire 10,000 additional soldiers. Are the administrative and procurement paths now barred within the Bundeswehr? Do we have sufficient functioning material? And above all, do we have sufficient qualified personnel to ensure national defense? We should all hope that the alliance falls does not occur. Much more important is and remains the Strait of Hormuz. It is now in our and unconditional German interest to keep this trade route, especially for raw materials, unrestricted. The oil price has already reacted to it. Tonight came the surprising news that the citizens' rights violations of Israel and the USA will be ended in Iran. These are good news from the Middle East in today's times. The next few hours will show how burdensome these statements are. But for armaments, money is there without end. This is the completely wrong approach. And dear colleagues, you praise NATO as if there was no tomorrow. The NATO, whose most important member, just on the weekend, began a violent attack on Iran, is already now dominating the entire world militarily. Last year, the NATO countries together have committed 55% of all global armament spending. There is no power on this planet that can compete with NATO. This is military reality, and yet you continue to say on all issues in foreign policy armament, armament, armament. Stop this armament madness now.